sure you've experienced this. I know, and the listeners out there have 100% experienced this. Anybody who has started their business and said, I'm going to get an accountant, which they basically have to do to be able to get their structures set up and all the rest of it. They think, I'm going to get this person that's going to help me with all my finances, all my numbers. That's generally not what happens. Their skill set is great, and we need the amazing accountants that are good at the structures, compliance, and those sorts of things, but their skill set often isn't the day-to-day financial decision making.
Welcome, Craig, to the Profit First Australia and New Zealand podcast. I'm going to hand it over to you to do a little intro, if you could, please.
Yeah, g'day. Well, I'm Craig Minter, owner of and founder of the Healthy Business Lab business, where we really improve the financial brain care of our allied health business owners that we love to connect with and hang around with.
Awesome. And so let's start with your Profit First journey. How long ago did that start? And I'd love to hear a little bit of the journey from when you did start to now.
Yeah, so my Profit First journey started way back around 8 years ago. Losing track, and I have to go by when I got certified, but I got in my head, it's around 7.5 years ago. And it was one of those ones I'd come across Mike McCallowitz's books, starting with the first one, The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, back in the day, from a podcast, which was called Inspiring Innovations. I remember it clear as day. It just got mentioned on a podcast there. Back then, I'd only just started listening to podcasts, and I read that book and went, oh, this is cool. So then just proceeded to read each of Mike's books in sort of chronological order, and was coming up to the next one, and I saw Profit First, and I went, I know a bit about numbers. Do I really need to be reading this? And I looked at it, and I ummed and ahed for a bit. I remember sitting on the Amazon page there for a bit and going, do I really need to? Accounting background, no numbers, talk with clients around dollars and efficiency and productivity and all these things. I thought, no, I'll check it out and see how he does it, because I love his approach. And as I was reading it straight away, I was like, this is cool. This is, for me, it reminded me very much of Richest Man in Babylon book, which again follows a similar bucket kind of approach and the story around that. I said, it's just basically the same as this, but for business. This is super cool. And so as I was reading it, I basically started implementing. I started talking to clients around the idea of it and some thoughts. And then with that in mind, I was sort of, as I touched upon, doing efficiency and consulting sort of work, where I'd always talk to clients around, hey, we've got to have, if you're going to invest in me and us and the like, we need to get a return on investment for that. And so we would talk about that in time saved and maybe dollars a little bit, but even as part of the notion, they're going, we can put profit and we can put cash in your bank. We can show it. And that will also help show, hey, here's the return on investment for the work that we do over a period of time. And so with those two things in mind, the book had talked about Profit First professionals, and I was like, what is this? And so I reached out at that point. There was no Australian arm of Profit First. It was way back then. And I reached out to Profit First in the US and had a chat and went, yeah, this is for me. I can help people implement this and things that I can put around that. It just felt like such a natural fit with how I talked about finances and the like, going back to working in public health organisations. It was never purely around financial reports. We'd always just talk about, people would come with financial report problems. We go, let's put them aside. Let's find the issue, find the solution. I'll talk about the couple of key numbers that will work for you, and Profit First was a brilliant way of doing that for small business owners.
And so you touched on there that you didn't think you needed to read the book because you had an accounting degree, you had an accounting background, yet when you did read it, you realized actually, even with all that knowledge and education and experience, it looked at a different angle of numbers than what we are traditionally taught if you do have an accounting degree or study bookkeeping or those sorts of things. And I'd love for you to just give us a little bit of what was your realization around the study that you had done and then Profit First and the differences, between the two?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I guess it ties back to what I touched upon there, that idea of even when I was working in large organizations, we're talking multi-million dollar budgets, forecasting, reading financial reports and the like. I learned very on in my career in that space was that that's great, but it didn't actually drive what actually happens. And you'd have managers coming to you in a flap and with their printed out profit and loss reports back in the day and the balance sheets and going, what does all this mean? I've got budgets and I just need to do this. I just need to save lives. I just need to get people moving again. I just need to do this. And we're talking health services here. And so it was that notion very early on, even from the education I'd done from a university aspect and your CPA and those sorts of things, that just the numbers wasn't the whole issue. It's more, what's the storytelling that we can have? How can we translate that to how people actually make their financial decisions? And so I was always conscious of that. So then again, coming across the book, it was that notion. Again, it just tied that behavioral aspect to how can we make numbers work and how do we bring out the key numbers that will have an impact for people. And I think it's that notion of why I did read the book was because, hey, there's always more to be learned. And just because I know something doesn't mean that is the be all and end all. And that process of continual learning. And as I've evolved more, again, what I found is, and Profit First was one small step in the process, the more we understand our brains and how we think, and then play that forward to how other people think, that then really is what has the biggest impact. And so, yeah, that transition of not getting bogged down in numbers per se, it's just let's watch the financial storytelling. What can we pick out that is going to give us financial peace of mind?
And it's something we talk about all the time within Profit First. It's around like the numbers for numbers' sake are useless almost. It's what we can do with those numbers and the stories that they tell. And in your case, that focus on that financial brain care as to how you can combine the facts and the figures with what the client actually wants and needs in their business. And so tell us a little bit more about that journey of how financial brain care kind of came to be the focus for you.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. It's been a long evolution, as you're well aware of, but it's just been that as I've evolved how our life, having a young family and the like, and then having a couple of businesses, and then starting with Profit First, it was interesting that very early on, I found Profit First is brilliant. It's great. It's a first port of call for people to be able to see things simpler and clearer in how I can look at numbers. But it's such a small piece. And the reality is, what I found is that Profit is a great marketing tool to go, profit, yeah, cool. I want to make that. That's brilliant. And it 100% does that. But the first thing I found very early was people had peace of mind because they had buckets of money that they could see that all had a purpose. And especially the tax bank account, which again is a lot of how a lot of people organically sort of start on a Profit First journey in some ways, is because often people have two bank accounts. 90% of people probably have one bank account. Another 8% of people will have two bank accounts, and they'll have a tax bank account because an accountant or bookkeeper or their friend may have mentioned, hey, this is useful, or they've had challenges with the tax office, and all of a sudden they go, oh, maybe that would be good. That by having that extra account and seeing money going aside for that gave people peace of mind. And that's what I used to talk a lot about. It's like, oh, this is giving financial peace of mind. And that's great. And so that was sort of step one. And then people would look at their costs and expenses, and that was good. And again, a Profit First business, we found typically we'd save a little bit of money here, but because they were freed up and they didn't feel pressure and stress around tax and knowing where cash was, the profitability improved, the revenue actually improved off the back of that. And so the next step sort of with that realization came from me was what's going to give people peace of mind. And it was always a question, once we had Profit First set up, it was what if, when can I, how do I? All these questions came up all the time. And it was like, well, when can I employ new staff? How much money do I need to make from this marketing initiative? And we would start creating all these spreadsheets and models, going back into spreadsheet land, producing all these numbers from my amazing financial modeling days. And I'd be like, I can't show all this stuff to people. Again, what are the key numbers that I need to pluck out of that? And really then formed into, again, a background in budgeting forecasting that led to Profit First is great. It helps you in the here and now, but it still doesn't give the full peace of mind that I was seeing was the thing that was having the real impact, because people don't know 1 week from now, 1 month from now, 1 year from now, what any of those bank accounts are going to be. And so that's when we evolved and really sort of leaned into forecasting and being able to do profit first specific forecasting in that. And again, that was kind of the next step. It was kind of like profit first, awesome tick. That gave sort of one, forecasting was number two, but really it also missed the point of the first thing that I talk about is having the right financial team around you. Because that was happening for us, because I don't do the tax or accounting for somebody, I was having this education piece around the financial team, and which sort of comes into, say, a financial brain care model, which is, hey, let's have the right financial team around people, because I'm sure you've experienced this, I know, and the listeners out there have 100% experienced this. Anybody who has started their business and said, I'm going to get an accountant, which they basically have to do to be able to get their structures set up and all the rest of it, they think, I'm going to get this person that's going to help me with all my finances, all my numbers. That's generally not what happens. Their skill set is great, and we need the amazing accountants that are good at the structures, compliance, and those sorts of things, but their skill set often isn't the day-to-day financial decision-making, forecasting, all these other things. And so the financial brain care model sort of evolved around those sort of three pillars, which we've also then wrapped around sort of money mindset to money mind growth. Again, how do we unlock how we actually think about money from an archetype perspective as well? So that's kind of that model that I've shared in about 5 to 7 minutes. It probably took me 5 to 7 years to actually work through the evolution of each of those sort of aspects of it.
And I think there's some key pieces there that, as you said, like Profit First is that first tool that allows you in your business and in your client's business to see where they are, making sure they've got money aside for all of the things that they need to, which then frees up their mental space to be able to start looking forward and thinking about planning, because so many businesses people would listen to this and go, I can barely get through the day, let alone thinking about what's going forward. And so recognizing that there's different tools for different stages of business, and Profit First for us is always that foundational tool, whether you're in an absolute financial mess or you're doing amazing. That key piece stays the same because it allows us to see where we are and so on, and unlocks those next stages that are much more fun in business. And as you say, it's finding the right financial team and having those key specialists do their key role for you, rather than thinking that your accountant can do it all, or your bookkeeper can do it all, or your business coach can do it all. It really is about having those specialists there for you as well.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think I very much see sort of Profit First as being it helps so much with just drawing the line in the sand. Let's be clear on the here and now. Let's get the line in the sand, and it helps to do all those things that you touched upon. I just talk about it, the dropping the shoulders from the ears down to the shoulders where they should actually be. It's a brilliant starting point, but it's definitely just the starting point.
And so tell us a little bit about the type of clients that you work with now, and why you choose to work with those particular types of clients.
The type of clients I work with are just awesome people. At the end of the day, what I love looking back at the evolution of the types of people we've worked with over the years is that we've always been surrounded by and had people that are forward thinking and want to learn more, want to do more. And that notion of, again, as I touched upon at the start of the call, we predominantly work with allied health business owners, and that's sort of, again, been an evolution that's sort of come full circle, and some of it was from our clientele evolved over the time. That's not where I started. We had a lot of people in the health and wellness general space in the early days, but what I found over the years is that we tend to have two sort of demographics, and it was a bunch of people from the allied health space and a bunch of people from property related sort of space. And quite often the similarity between the two was sort of family, when I say family based, it was husband and wife or two partners who are involved in a business as well. So if we look at clientele, 80% is two people active on a lot of the calls that we have and the like. From the, I guess, the allied health perspective that we then now focus more on, it's also that part of background in public health here in Australia and in the UK. Again, speaking with the managers that I sort of touched upon before, managing massive sort of budgets, just know the space very well. And we use a lot of therapies. I've used just about every modality of therapy, playing reasonable level of sport through your chiros, your physios, kinesiologists, and all these sorts of practitioners in the day, but also our family, young neurodivergent family. We access and speak consistently with occupational therapists, psychologists, speech therapists, and all these amazing practitioners out there that are doing such amazing things in the world, especially for the younger generation and the like of educating that we sit in and we learn so much that we just really want to help there be more amazing practices out there in the world so that people don't have to wait on the waiting list. There's a bunch of waiting lists that we had to be on, that many families are on to access this because there's not enough of the practitioners running amazing sustainable practices that can employ amazing team members that can grow to evolve to grow a business or then progress on to owning their own practice in time and the like. And the part of that in the health space in general and allied health, money can be a bit of a dirty word. I was just talking with somebody yesterday about this because I'm here to help people. And with helping people, often the boundaries aren't put in place, which, coming back to money mindsets, the nurturer mindset, the accumulator mindset, sometimes can be hard to put boundaries around the work. So we give ourselves away for free, which leads to the burnout, that leads to not charging what is sustainable for a business to actually be sustainable and give the opportunities of helping more people, of growing team members and the like. So that's what, wakes me up every morning to get out and help these practices that can be more profitable, be more sustainable. And again, even coming back to the idea of profit first, it can throw some people off because, again, profit first is a great marketing term, but we often talk about it's people first, it's purpose first is quite often, obviously, in the health space, that you can name it whatever you mean, but from the financial structures we can put in place to make sure that what you're doing is financially sustainable and viable, and the impact that you actually went into the profession for in the first place.
And that's what we talk about all the time is, yes, it is profit first, but when I talk about it, profit equals choice. So it's the choice to be able to invest in my own learning or my team's learning, or to be able to invest in potentially having clients that I charge less because they may be struggling and so on. It's not, when we're talking about profit first, we're not talking about at the expense of people. It's the exact opposite to that. And I think that's a perfect example there. By you being able to help those in this space, they will be able to do more, make a bigger impact. The waiting list will be able to reduce. They'll be able to pass on their knowledge and experience rather than being burnt out and having to find another sort of area to go into and so on. And it just starts with a little simple step of making sure that you have profit first set up in your business so you know what you can and can't do, and also give you those opportunities to think potentially about things that you may not have thought were possible for your business as well. And so for those in the allied health space who may be listening, what would be your one suggestion to them? You mentioned a little bit before that sometimes profit is kind of like a bit of a dirty word in that space. If you could impart sort of like one piece of wisdom to them that would help them from this financial aspect, what would that be? And I have put Craig on the spot with this question as well.
You probably should have thought about that beforehand. Yeah, it's a question that is a very good question. But I think I'll come back to is that I want people in the space and people anywhere in fairness to look after their financial brain care. And so the first aspect of that is being conscious and aware of where you are right now, both from the physical cash perspective of being aware of where I sit in cash in a bank or how much money I might be having coming in consistently versus how much is going out. But it's also that comfort level with how I look at money. And it is that notion of having the understanding of how I think about money. What are all those past conditionings that we've had or whatever, what a message is, are we giving ourselves? We get a message of money is bad because of X, Y, Z, there's greed, there's this, there's whatever. And assessing that, I did a financial therapy session for somebody earlier on in the week, and it was just, that is 100% a great starting point to sort of unpack that sort of picture to go, where do I step so that I now know what are the next 1, 2, 3 steps? And that example within that financial therapy session, it wasn't implement profit first, it wasn't step 1, 2, or 3 off the back of that. It was more, the question couldn't be answered around how much money do I have coming in consistently and regularly, how much is actually going out, because it's just a bit overwhelming. So we want to take that overwhelm out, because you're never going to get to down the path if we can't get past that. Let's just put money over there and I just want to avoid it. And so that's why I just want people to be able to sit in a space where we live in a world where money does have an impact whether we like it or not. One of my archetypes is an alchemist, very much a love-hate relationship with money. I don't believe money shouldn't be as important as it is, but the reality is it is in certain aspects. But then how do we leverage that? How do we go about that? So getting comfortable with that so that we can look after it and reduce any stress levels that sit around, again, the financial brain care. That's where I'd want to sit, number one.
And I think as well, that's such a good example of where there's stories that we tell ourselves or others have told ourselves over the years that for many people make them feel like they're no good with money. They haven't been good with money in the past, so they're never going to be good with money in the future, which is not fact. And like you say with your model, it's that process of taking them through a journey rather than just work with me, implement this, and everything's going to be amazing. We're humans and we're a little bit more complex than that. And it's just stepping through at the right pace for the right person. And that's something that you obviously do very well with your clients, that it isn't a cookie cutter, start here, do this exactly perfect in this perfect time frame. It does very much depend on the person and what they need as well. Because again, as you say, your ultimate outcome is that financial brain care. And I think we logically know how stressful finances can be for us, yet we often don't want to think about how stressful finances can be for us on our health, on our brain, on our families, and so on. And so, yes, it's always very exciting to hear the journey that you have with your clients, because you just open up a completely different world that many of them didn't even realize existed.
It all comes back to education at the end of the day. And if we're not aware of these things, which is why platforms like this are great, and that's why Profit First as a book and as a brand and as a model, it starts conversations. It puts it out there and we get to have these conversations. So it starts with the education. And to think that, again, the numbers that I kind of use is that if you could think that you could spend 23 hours a year on your finances, is that a worthwhile amount of time in your schedule? And that's basically what the model that we use comes down to of, hey, here's these activities that are 15 minutes per week. It's an extra 30 minutes per month, 30 minutes per quarter, and 1 hour annually. And it all adds up to around about 23 hours. And that's not a big investment for anybody who doesn't like numbers, who doesn't feel empowered around it and the like. Then, well, let's get a framework in place that does put you in a position where that feels like a good investment of time to then be able to go, I've got that foundation in place. I can go on and do all the other cool things, because I don't want to be bogged down. I don't want to have part of my brain looking after that, thinking about that.
And again, perfect example there. It doesn't have to be hours upon hours upon hours every week to master this. It can just be, as you say, in your instance, 23 hours in the year. And you mentioned there around conversations and education and so on, and conversations via podcast. Your podcast is something that you are doing at the moment. I would love to learn a little bit more about what the podcast's called and where we can listen in on that one as well.
Thank you for the introduction to that podcast. So yeah, it's nice and simple. I'm not the marketing genius here. It is called the Healthy Business Lab podcast, off the name of our business, but it's very much sharing stories and insights of allied health business owners, and it's very much learning the expertise that they've got. There's often the expertise that is there in the space that helps us look after ourselves as a business owner, which is the first thing we need to do as a business owner. So we get great insights there. Then we hear about the business experiments that the allied health business owners have done throughout their business journey. And so we get insights and learnings of the wins and the challenges and how they've actually got out. So we're getting great stories around different ways of looking at things and how to run practices. And then we get the transformations, again, the end outcomes of running an amazing practice, the impacts we're having on people's lives, which, again, the idea of the podcast is coming full circle. We want more of these transformations. We want to share ways that can be gone about and that we have to look after ourselves as a business owner. And yeah, that's across all our socials. It's on Apple and Spotify, and thinking through my head, the team looks after all those things.
All the usual places.
Yeah, it's all the usual places and the like.
Awesome. And wrapping up with one final question, if there are any allied health people listening to this and they would like to reach out to you, apart from obviously listening to your podcast, what would be the best way for them to be able to find you and do that?
Yeah, the best way to find me is probably easiest these days is via LinkedIn. It's the social channel that I spend the most on, and because it's got nice communication there, again, where I'm relatively active there in conversation. So that's a great starting point, and it's simple. We don't have to share email, long-winded emails and the like. So that's probably the port of call to reach out. And again, have a look at some of the content we're sharing there. We're sharing daily tips, ideas, commentary, and obviously keeping people across the podcast there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Craig.
No, thank you, Katie.